The mistake in the lab. Inside, a clean silver lab floating high above the alien planet Vasari Prime. The air was quiet and cold. Only the soft hum of machines could be heard. A young human engineer named Ryan was working on a neural enhancer, a new device made to help alien species increase their senses for medical and emotional healing purposes. Ryan had been part of this project for months, but today was different because he had a volunteer, and she was not just anyone. Her name was Lyra, a young Vessery girl with smooth pale lavender skin, glowing teal eyes, and long strands of soft silvery hair. She was shy but curious, and when she entered the lab, she gave Ryan a small nod without saying a word. Vessery were known for being quiet and serious, but Lyra looked different. She had questions in her eyes, like she wanted something more from this experience. Ryan smiled, trying to make her feel relaxed. He explained how the neural enhancer would connect to her brain and amplify the emotional signals inside her body. He had tested it on plants before and a few lab rodents, but this would be the first time on a real intelligent alien. He checked the interface again, made sure the frequency was stable, and gently asked her to sit down on the soft chair surrounded by scanners and light beams. Lyra sat without fear. Her gaze locked onto his face as he placed the neural connector at the back of her neck. The machine made a soft chime. It had connected smoothly. Now Ryan typed in the calibration code and adjusted a specific setting called bio-emotion mapping. This was designed to let the subject's body react naturally to hidden feelings and unspoken desires. But then something unexpected happened. The screen blinked in, red for half a second, then returned to normal. Ryan didn't notice. He thought it was just a small glitch. But Lyra's body shifted. Her shoulders tensed and her fingers grabbed the sides of the chair tightly. She let out a small gasp, barely louder. Then a whisper. Her chest heaved up, and then something visibly changed. Lyra looked down at herself in shock. Her chest had grown larger, much larger, and her face turned a deep violet color. Ryan stared with wide eyes frozen in place. His hands were still hovering over the keyboard, but he didn't move. Lyra pulled her arms across her chest, trying to cover herself. But the change was impossible to hide. She stood up quickly, her breathing short and fast. She looked at Ryan once, then turned and ran out of the lab, not saying a word. Ryan was left standing there in complete silence. He couldn't believe what had just happened. He checked the code again. Everything looked normal. No errors, no spikes. Then he opened the emotional feedback log, and his jaw dropped. The neural enhancer hadn't malfunctioned. It had worked perfectly. It had enhanced the subject's strongest emotional desire, and somehow the desire was linked to body image and visibility. Lyra had subconsciously wanted to be noticed. Her emotional frequency showed signs of insecurity, shyness, and internal isolation. The enhancer had read those signals and responded in the most direct way. It had reshaped her to match what her mind thought would bring attention. Ryan put a hand over his face. He didn't mean to do this. He didn't even know it could do that. He looked toward the door where Lyra had vanished and felt a heavy weight in his chest. He had embarrassed her, maybe even humiliated her. And now she might never speak to him again. But somewhere deep inside him, a small thought whispered, maybe this wasn't just about a mistake. Maybe Lyra had changed in more ways than one. He closed the console and took a deep breath. He knew he had to find her. He had to apologize. He had to understand what really happened. But most of all, he had to make sure she was okay, because this accident might be much more than just a lab error. It might be the beginning of something strange and completely out of his control. And someone, somewhere would find out soon. Ryan just hoped it wouldn't be too late to fix it, or to protect her from what came next. Whispers and giggles. The halls of the Vasari Science Station were usually silent, filled with focused minds and polite nods. But today, something had changed. Whispers moved faster than light. Soft giggles echoed behind closed doors. Whenever Lyra walked past, Vessery researchers lowered their eyes or covered their mouths. Some humans just blinked in confusion. They didn't know what had happened in the lab, but the aliens did. And the rumor was ridiculous, strange, and true. Lyra kept her head down as she walked. Her long robe swayed behind her, trying to hide the visible change in her body. She had wrapped herself tight. But it wasn't enough. The growth wasn't going away. Her chest still felt heavy, warm, and embarrassingly full. She could feel her own pulse through the skin. And the worst part, every time she thought about Ryan, it twitched again slightly, like the enhancement was reacting to her thoughts. She entered a quiet observation room and sat near the corner. Her heart was pounding, not from shame, but confusion. Yes, she had run away. But now, hours later, the truth was starting to sink in. The machine didn't break. It responded to her emotions, which meant she had felt this deep desire inside all along. Not for attention from everyone, but from him. Lyra didn't understand it fully. Vessery culture taught emotional control and modesty. But Ryan had been kind, gentle, and when he looked at her, she felt seen, not just as a test subject but as herself. She had admired him quietly, and somehow her mind had made that wish real. Before she could think more, the door opened. Ryan stepped in. He looked nervous, almost guilty. He wasn't holding any tools or devices, just a warm drink and a folded blanket. I thought you might be cold," he said softly. Lyra stared at him, then looked away. "I'm sorry," he added quickly. "It was my fault. I should have noticed the calibration spike. I never meant to. I mean, not like that." Silence hung between them like a heavy curtain. But then, to his surprise, Lyra let out a tiny breath of laughter. "You're apologizing for something my body asked for," she said, not looking at him. "The device didn't force me. It listened." Ryan's eyebrows rose slightly. He took a slow step forward. "So, you're not angry?" Lyra shook her head. "I'm embarrassed, yes, but not angry. I was always quiet, invisible, even among my own kind. But now, everyone looks. Even if they laugh, they see me." Ryan hesitated, then sat on the floor across from her, keeping a respectful distance. He handed her the blanket, and she accepted it with a small nod. "I ran the logs," he said. "Your emotional output was strong. The enhancer didn't just detect surface feelings. It went deep. It saw your real self." "That scares me," she whispered. "It scares me too," he admitted. "Because now, I think it's still active. I think your body is still bonded to the signal. And maybe to me." Lyra's fingers tightened around the cup. Her cheeks flushed again, turning soft violet. She didn't speak, but she didn't deny it either. Outside the room, someone paused near the door. A soft voice whispered, "That's her. The one from the lab." Another laughed quietly. Footsteps walked away. Ryan sighed and leaned back against the wall. "You're becoming famous," he joked. Lyra rolled her eyes slightly but smiled. "I never wanted to be famous. I just wanted someone to care that I existed." Ryan looked at her gently. "Then they're looking at the wrong thing, because I already cared. Before all this." Her heart skipped for a long moment. They just sat there in silence, the tension between them softer now. But it didn't last. The wall screen blinked. A message appeared in alien script. Ryan stood quickly and read it aloud. "Subject Lyra has been suspended from neural testing. A recall has been issued to her family colony for cultural violation review." Lyra's face went pale. She stood quickly, eyes wide. No, they'll force a reset. They'll take it back. My changes. My choices. Ryan shook his head. They can't do that. You didn't break any rule. They'll say I did, she said, voice trembling. They fear change, especially from someone like me. Ryan looked at her, something fierce growing in his eyes. Then I won't let them. I'll fight it. She blinked at him. Why? He gave a soft smile. Because you're not just a subject in a lab, Lyra. You're someone who finally started to feel alive, and I won't let anyone take that from you. Her breath caught in her throat, and for the first time since the experiment, she stood tall. Not hiding, not blushing, just seen. Banned from the program. The next morning, the announcement became official. A red notice flashed across every station screen. Lyra Vasari, suspended from further testing, stripped of volunteer status, and ordered to report to the return shuttle by cycle's end. There were no hearings, no discussions, just cold, silent judgment. The kind the Vasari were famous for. Lyra stood in her quarters staring at the blinking message. Her hands trembled slightly. The neural changes hadn't faded. If anything, they felt stronger. Her heartbeat seemed louder. Her skin more sensitive. Her emotions harder to suppress. And it wasn't random. It was all tied to the moment she'd looked into Ryan's eyes. The moment she felt like she finally existed. There was a soft knock at the door. She didn't need to guess who it was. Ryan stepped in quietly. He had that same awkward concern on his face. He held a small metal case, something from his private tools. They're serious, he said after a pause. I tried, talking to Director Kellen. He just looked at me and said, Vasari purity doesn't bend to human accidents. Lyra didn't answer. She just picked up the thin gray robe she was supposed to wear for her return. It covered everything, hid everything. The robe was a symbol of shame, used for those who had changed in ways that weren't approved. I won't wear this, she said, her voice calm but steady. Ryan looked surprised. They'll arrest you if you refuse, he warned. I don't care, she said. They didn't ask me what I felt. They didn't even ask if I was hurt. They only cared that I looked different. He opened the case and revealed a small modified scanner with soft blue lights. I rebuilt part of the neural enhancer. The part that caused the change is still active inside you. That's why the effects haven't reversed. Your body accepted the bond, and now it reacts to emotional triggers. Lyra looked at him carefully. You mean, it's connected to what I feel? Ryan nodded. And especially to who you feel it for. She stepped closer, the air between them heating slightly. Her glowing teal eyes locked with his. Then if I leave now, she whispered, I'll be forced to shut down what's already part of me. Ryan didn't speak, but his hand gently closed the scanner case, as if sealing the answer inside. There may be a way to fight this, he said, but it won't be easy. You'll need to speak before the tribunal. Make your case, publicly. It's rare for a young Vasari to do that, but it's not forbidden. She hesitated. No one her age had ever challenged a recall order, especially not a female. It was dangerous, social suicide. But she had already been branded, already laughed at, already stared at like some strange new creature. What else could they take? I'll do it, she said firmly. But you have to stand with me. Ryan gave a slow nod. I was planning to. Hours later, the council hall opened to a smaller crowd than usual, but whispers still flowed. Alien scientists from different departments had gathered. Some out of curiosity, some out of concern. A few humans watched from a distant row, unsure what this gathering even meant. At the center of the hall stood the tribunal seat, raised, cold, and judgmental. The head of the research council, a tall and sharp-featured Vasari named Tolven, stared at Lyra as she walked in. Her steps were slow but steady. Her robe was gone. She wore a simple vest and training pants. Nothing to hide. Gasps echoed as many realized the changes hadn't reversed. She dares show herself like that? Someone whispered. She didn't even cover up? She must have been completely overtaken by human filth. Silence, Tolvin called, raising his hand. Begin. Lyra stood in the center, trembling but defiant. Ryan stood beside her, silent but present. His calm presence gave her strength. I didn't ask to be changed, Lyra began. But I didn't fight it either, because it wasn't a mistake. The neural enhancer connected to my deepest thoughts, and what it showed was truth. My truth. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to feel. And now I do. Tolven narrowed his eyes. You defy our natural order. I followed the protocol. I volunteered. I didn't disobey a single law. But your form is mine, she interrupted. Louder now. It's mine. You may not like what I look like now, but this body isn't broken. It's awakened. I feel stronger. I feel more alive than I ever did. A heavy silence followed. Lyra's hands were clenched. She hadn't noticed until Ryan gently placed his palm over hers. Tolven leaned back. And this human? Lyra glanced at Ryan, then turned back. He gave me respect before anything changed. He saw me when no one else did. My feelings began long, before the device reacted. Maybe it only gave me the shape to match what I already carried inside. There was more whispering, confusion, discomfort, but also curiosity. Tolven tapped his fingers once. We will consider. You may leave. As the two walked out, Ryan looked down at her and said softly, You were amazing in there. Lyra blushed again, but this time, she didn't hide it. The emotional link. That night, silence filled the Vasari station again, but this time, it was not peaceful. It was tense. Everyone waited for the council's decision. Some whispered that Lyra had ruined her future. Others said she had started something bold and dangerous. But one thing was clear. No one was ignoring her anymore. Inside Ryan's quarters, Lyra sat cross-legged on the floor, a cup of warm steam root tea in her hands. She wore a simple tank top and soft training shorts, clothes borrowed from the human dormitory. They didn't fit perfectly, but she didn't care. She felt more comfortable in them than in anything her people gave her. Ryan sat across from her, watching as she stared at the glowing tea. Does it still feel strange? He asked gently. She nodded slowly. My body is different. Not just the parts everyone noticed. Even my skin feels warmer. My heartbeat is faster when you're near. I even dream. Ryan tilted his head slightly. You didn't dream before. Vasari don't allow open dreaming, she said softly. It's considered wasteful emotion. We take sleep suppressants to stay efficient. But since the enhancement, my dreams have returned. She looked at him with glowing teal eyes, full of questions and unspoken feelings. In one of them, I was flying, but not alone. You were holding my hand. Ryan said nothing for a moment. His heart beat a little faster. He wasn't a soldier or a romantic hero. He was just an engineer. A guy who accidentally caused a beautiful alien girl's body to respond to her secret desires, and now couldn't stop thinking about her. I think the enhancer did more than react to your thoughts, he said quietly. It formed a link, a bond, and it's still active. Lyra raised her eyebrows slightly. How strong is it? Ryan opened a small monitor screen and showed her neural signature. A glowing line ran across the graph, pulsing with every beat of her heart. When he stepped closer, the pulse spiked. Lyra felt it too. A warmth in her chest, a tickling in her spine. It's like your emotions are wired into my presence, he explained. When I'm nearby, the enhancer lights up. Your body responds. Even your brainwaves shift slightly. Lyra looked away, a little embarrassed. So, Emotionally tuned to you. Ryan scratched the back of his neck. Technically, yes, but it's more than emotion. It's connection, maybe even affection. She gave him a sharp glance. Affection. He shrugged. I mean, you trust me, right? Lyra stared at him, her cheeks slowly turning violet. I think I liked you even before the enhancement. I just didn't know how to feel it. Now I can't turn it off. Suddenly, there was a loud beep at the door. Ryan stood up fast. His eyes glanced at the screen. It was a message from the outer watchtower. A Vessery patrol ship just docked. He read aloud. Council enforcers have arrived early. Lyra stood up too, her body stiff with fear. They came for me? Ryan nodded slowly. They'll either escort you to the recall shuttle or take you into custody for defying the robe order. Lyra's breathing grew shallow. Her hands trembled. They'll wipe my neural change. They'll inject me with suppressants. I'll lose everything, even my dreams. No, Ryan said firmly. Not if we run. She blinked in surprise. Run. There's nowhere to go. Yes, there is, he said, already grabbing his pack. There's a service tunnel through the engine corridor. I can override the doors. We'll head to the mining zone. It's off-grid and barely patrolled. We just need to stay hidden until I contact someone I know. A human diplomat who owes me. Lyra hesitated. But if we go, you'll be branded too. You'll lose your job. Your life here. Ryan looked her in the eyes. Then I'll start a new one. Lyra felt her heart race again, not from fear, but something warm, something dangerous, something real. The link between them pulsed like fire under her skin. I'm scared, she whispered. He stepped closer, not touching her, but near enough that she felt the heat of him. I am too, he said. But I'd rather run into danger with you than watch them erase who you are. She looked up into his eyes, and in that moment, without a single kiss or touch, something deep inside both of them locked into place. They moved quickly, slipping into the back corridor just as security units passed the main hall. The lights flickered above. Sirens stayed, silent, but the danger was closing in. As they entered the dark maintenance shafts, Lyra turned to Ryan. You're doing all this for me? He smiled as he lifted the panel behind her. No, I'm doing it for us. Because maybe what we have now isn't just an accident. And then they vanished into the shadows, running from a system that feared feelings, running towards something neither of them could name yet. But it was alive and growing stronger. Escape through the outer decks. The outer decks of the station were colder, darker, and mostly forgotten. Thick metal walls, old ventilation pipes, and blinking control panels surrounded them like a maze. Few people ever came here. It was where broken drones were stored, and old maintenance systems kept breathing life into the aging parts of the station. But tonight, it became their only hope. Ryan led the way through narrow corridors, holding a small hand scanner that beeped quietly. At each door, Lyra followed closely behind, her breath visible in the cold. Her body still felt warm, but the station's freezing steel bit at her exposed skin. Still, she didn't complain. She walked without hesitation, her heart pounding in rhythm with Ryan's every step. They stopped near a sealed panel. Security grid ends here, Ryan whispered. Beyond this point, we'll be off the main network. They won't track us. Lyra nodded, though her legs were shaking. I've never broken rules like this before, she said. Voice low. Ryan glanced back at her. Well, first time for everything. He forced a smile, but she saw the stress in his eyes. He wasn't just worried for her. He was scared for both of them. They moved through the hatch and into a tunnel barely tall enough to stand. Old lights flickered, and something hissed in the pipes. The sound startled Lyra, and she stumbled. Ryan caught her quickly, his hands firm around her arms. You all right? She nodded, cheeks flushed from both fear and his touch. I didn't. mean to cause all this, she said. You didn't, he replied. Your body reacted to something real. That's not a crime. But I changed. I became something else. And now, I'm dragging you down with me. Ryan stared at her for a long moment, then shook his head. No, you didn't drag me anywhere. I chose this path because you're the only one who made me feel like I was more than just a tool in this station. You looked at me like I mattered. Lyra's eyes shimmered slightly in the dim light. She stepped closer without thinking. You matter to me, she said quietly. Even before this bond, I used to watch you work. You were always patient, kind, focused. I envied that. He raised an eyebrow. You watched me? She blushed deeply from the biology wing window. I pretended I was studying human muscle patterns. But really, I just liked the way you talked to machines. Like they were people. Ryan laughed softly, shaking his head. Well, I never thought fixing a broken water filter would impress an alien girl. There was a small silence. Then her hand slowly reached out and touched his. I'm glad it did. Before either of them could say more, the alert tone blared above them. A voice echoed through the metal corridor. Unauthorized access detected in the auxiliary section. Units dispatched. Remain where you are. Lyra flinched. Ryan grabbed her hand and pulled her forward. They found us. We need to move now. They sprinted through the next passage, turned sharply into a maintenance tunnel, and climbed down a steep ladder. Lyra moved fast, but she was still Visari, less used to physical motion. Her foot slipped, but Ryan caught her again, pulling her into his arms as they landed on the lower deck. She gasped, her face pressed against his chest. I'm not used to running, she admitted. He held her steady, then leaned on me. She didn't let go. They kept moving until they reached an old cold storage bay, one no longer used due to environmental failures. Ryan sealed the door behind them, locking it from the inside. The room was large, full of old crates, and completely silent. A perfect place to hide, if only for a while. Lyra sat down on a crate, wrapping her arms around herself. Her body trembled, not from fear but something else. It's happening again, she whispered. Ryan looked at her. What is? The bond. It reacts to danger and closeness. She looked up at him, eyes glowing brighter than before. Every time you touch me, it grows stronger. I can feel you, your thoughts, your fear, and your care. Ryan knelt in front of her, his voice low. Do you want it to stop? She shook her head immediately. No, I'm scared of losing it, of going back to how I was before. Numb, quiet, unseen. Ryan reached out and gently placed his hand over hers. Then we protected. Together. For a moment, there was no fear, just warmth between them, strange and powerful. But then the security panel blinked red. Someone was trying to override the lock. They both stood quickly. Time's up, Ryan said, scanning the room for another exit. Lyra touched his arm. If we get separated, we won't. But if we do, she said, stepping closer. Promise me, you'll keep feeling it. The bond. Even if I'm far. He nodded, heart beating hard. I promise. Then he pulled a hidden vent cover off the wall. This way. And once again, they vanished. Two hearts running not from punishment, but toward a future neither of them understood. But they were ready to fight for it, together. A choice of the heart. The mining sector lay deep in the lower half of the station, a massive web of empty tunnels, inactive drills, and echoing silence. Once used for asteroid harvesting, now it was abandoned, forgotten by most. It was the perfect place to hide, but not for long. Ryan led Lyra through the final hatch into the central cavern. Dust covered everything. Old hologram signs flickered faintly, warning of unstable ground. But here, at least for a moment, they were safe. Lyra dropped onto a crate, her legs shaking, breath unsteady. Her body felt strange, warm, but not with fever, heavy, but not weak. The neural bond was glowing inside her like a heartbeat she couldn't ignore. Every time Ryan looked at her, it pulsed stronger. Not out of control, but alive. Ryan sat beside her, his eyes scanning the tunnel entrance. "They'll find this place eventually," he said. "We've got maybe an hour." I already sent a coded message to a friend, diplomatic class. If she answers, she might get us asylum, but we'll still be exiles, Lyra said softly. Cut off from our homes, branded. Ryan didn't speak. He knew it was true. Lyra stared at her hands. Her fingers trembled slightly. "I used to think I was broken," she said, voice low. "That my body was wrong. Too small, too soft, too quiet. Vessery girls aren't supposed to want attention. We're meant to serve silently, think logically, obey the rules. But then, I volunteered. And I saw you. And suddenly, I wanted something more." Ryan looked at her. Really looked. "I never thought I'd change anyone's life," he said. "I'm just a tech, a guy who fixes broken doors and calibrates machines." Lyra turned to him, her voice trembling. "You didn't fix something in me, Ryan. You unlocked it. You made me feel real." The air between them thickened. For a long moment, they just sat there. Two people from different worlds, bound by accident, now chained by choice. Then the comlink on Ryan's wrist blinked. A signal came through. "Ryan, this is Commander Elia. I got your message. You're in trouble." He answered fast. "Yes, we need diplomatic sanctuary. One alien citizen, one human. We're being pursued by the Vasari Tribunal for a biological offense. It's complicated." There was a pause. "Understood. Sending a courier ship to your location. Stealth class. You've got 30 minutes. Make it to the upper docking spire. That's the only window." The message ended. Ryan looked at Lyra. "We've got a way out." But Lyra didn't move. She looked unsure. "Torn. If I leave, I can never go back. You'll be free. But I'll lose everything I knew. My family. My world." Ryan stood and held out his hand. "Or you can have something new." Lyra stared at his hand. Her pulse echoed in her ears. Then she stood and took it. They moved fast, racing through narrow tunnels, scaling emergency ladders, bypassing locked doors. As they reached the upper corridors, red lights flashed overhead. Guards had found their trail. "Don't stop!" Ryan yelled. Lyra kept close, her lungs burning, but her will stronger than ever. Not because she had to run, but because she chose this. She chose him. As they neared the docking spire, a group of Vessery enforcers blocked their path. Lyra froze. "They'll take us." "No," Ryan said. He stepped forward, arms raised. "She's with me, under Earth Alliance protection. If you harm her, you're risking an interspecies conflict." The guards hesitated. Then a sleek black ship appeared outside the window. Its hatch opened silently with a soft blue glow. The guards stepped back, not because of Ryan's words, but because of who exited the ship. A tall woman in a navy blue uniform, human military class, with silver stripes on her arms. "Commander Elia." She walked forward calmly, scanned the room, then nodded at Lyra. "Welcome aboard, Vessery citizen. Your application for protection has been accepted. You're under my care now." Lyra blinked. You'll accept me." "Like this?" Commander Elia smiled faintly. Some of the best people I know started as outcasts. Lyra looked at Ryan. He gave a small nod. She stepped forward into the light. The guards didn't move. They only watched, unsure, powerless now. As the ship sealed its doors and took off, Lyra stood beside Ryan, watching the station grow smaller through the window. "Are we really free?" she asked. He looked at her and smiled. "No, we're just beginning." She leaned her head on his shoulder. And, for the first time in her life, Lyra didn't feel like a subject in someone else's story. She felt like the main character of her own, the end.